what is up? Welcome to the Next Guy Up podcast. We have an awesome episode for you today. We had a big weekend in football. We had some huge games go down. We will be talking and breaking down all of those games for you. We are excited about it. So, Tins, how we doing today?
We are doing great, coming off of a big weekend of gambling, big weekend of all my favorite teams won. My fantasy team might even win too. We might have a weekend sweep on our hands.
It's big time.
And hit some bets. If you're in the Discord, shout out. If you followed me yesterday for college football, or I guess Saturday for college football, we had a great day. And if you're not following our picks in there, you're dumb because it's free return on money. It's a free Discord, and I think I'm 12, 5-1 last 2 weeks. So I don't know. It's pretty good. 12 is bigger than 5.
That is a fact. He's been killing it. Tins has been don't look now, but his college betting is getting hot.
Yeah, ignore the NFL. Just ignore it.
He's been don't worry about that. He's been in the streets though, collecting his money in college. So Tennessee first quarter spread hit
once again. It's only lost once this whole season.
0-0.
Hey, if they hand
we're gonna take plus 0.5 there though. That's solid. So we did have a couple of big games. We had Georgia, Texas, in what is a top 5 matchup. We also had Tennessee, Alabama. Both games were fun. We now, I feel like our picture is starting to become a little bit clearer on. I feel like every week in college football, the picture becomes a little bit clearer, but also our path towards the playoffs becomes a little bit foggier. And then you have teams like Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago who just do something crazy, and then it's like, well, I thought I knew what this team was. Just kidding. They just lost to Vanderbilt. Or they just do something weird that just shocks you. So I don't know. This year in college is becoming weirder and weirder in some ways. This week, honestly, was a little bit more chalk down the board. Not a lot of huge surprises, but there were some fun games. There's a couple teams out there that are getting very interesting to watch. We are looking over to Indiana for one team that is looking especially frisky right now.
Frisky? Yeah, frisky's the right word for him.
And their coach as well. Dropped an F-bomb in the pre. Did you hear about that?
I did see that.
Yep. He's a little bit no nonsense. I'm kind of afraid of that guy.
He's, I was watching a lot of their pregame stuff, and they asked him about that clip that's going viral where he says, "Google me, I win. That's what I do."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Yeah, well, I had spent the whole day, my first day, answering nothing but questions about how are you going to win? How can you win in a program like Indiana? How can you do it against these big teams like Ohio State and Michigan and blah, blah, blah." And he said, "I just finally got tired of it. And I just wanted everyone to realize that, like, everywhere I've gone, I've won. So that was my answer. And here we are. Like, I haven't lost
yet. Never coached a losing season?
Yeah.
I feel like I saw that stat.
Yeah. That's crazy. I saw one, like, he spent 2 seasons at a pretty small school. His record wasn't great, but he didn't have a losing season. But he wasn't there for very long. It's like some D2 level school. But yeah, I mean, he makes me nervous because I think he's going to take he's going to take a promotion after this year. I think
he probably will.
He's going to be a guy who gets like an upgrade job. Not that Indiana's not great. It's fun that they're good and
not
good basketball school, but it's not a football school. And some big time school is going to offer him a bag of money. And I know we're going to talk about some hot seats later, and
we are
some teams that could be linked to him.
And I was watching the broadcast a little bit, and they were just like, "This guy came from JMU, and this guy also came from JMU."
Yeah, he brought all his boys.
Interesting how that works out. You just bring your whole team, and all of a sudden they're pretty good.
Yep,
weird.
He nailed the transfer portal quarterback, kid from Miami of Ohio, I think is where he was from.
Very difficult to do, by the way.
Yeah, nailing the transfer portal.
A lot of teams that really did not nail the transfer quarterback.
Yeah, some that
For
did.
The ones that are 1-6. Shout out to Florida State.
Yeah. Nothing like giving a guy his third chance in college football. You're the team that can fix him. Third time's a charm.
Do you think
Shout out,
Norvell knows
DJ.
that tanking in college football doesn't work?
I don't know if he's figured that out yet.
Is he trying to
there's not
tank?
there's
Maybe.
not a draft. You don't get
Yeah.
extra money in the NIL deal if you are the worst team. Like that's not how it works.
I don't know if I've ever seen a team
Dude.
that just. I feel like this is what I expected out of Florida. To be 100% honest with you,
Yeah.
like whenever I just expected them just to kind of roll over and die and just be like, well, our coach is terrible. He's leaving. What are we doing here? And Florida, to their credit, has not done that.
No, they've
Florida
really.
has become a pretty interesting football team to follow and beat a Kentucky team that was pretty unmotivated, but is not a bad team.
Right.
And Billy Napier fighting for his job out here.
Yeah, we
Somehow
were
he is
talking.
not the most fireable person in college football right now.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before. Zach said I think Florida might be fighting for a bowl game, and at that point, Billy's probably not going anywhere. And I agree. I know that him and DJ Lagway are very like tied at the hip. That was his big recruit that he brought there, and he's played very well. And him being a freshman, I think Billy kind of has found a way to keep his job as long as nothing. I think if they were to get embarrassed again this season, especially the way their schedule ends, I don't think they've got a super tough schedule to end the season.
We're talking
So I
about
think if they,
Florida.
yeah, talking about Florida.
I don't know if you'd be correct in that.
Am I not?
This was the team that we were touting as the toughest schedule in college football history at the
I
beginning
know,
of the
but I
season.
feel like they got
Well,
LSU.
Florida State helps.
Right, they've got
They have
Florida
Florida
State on
State
the schedule.
at the very end.
It should be what, LSU and Texas.
They have 5
Maybe.
games left, so they've got. They're at Georgia,
Oh, that's right. That's in
at
Jacksonville.
Texas,
Okay.
LSU in Florida. They
Yep,
host
I was
Ole
definitely
Miss,
wrong.
and then they're at Florida State.
Okay. Well, I guess there's still
like
a chance
4
Billy
teams
gets fired.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think there's a pretty high chance they lose the next 4 games. But what's also if they could win one of those in Florida State, it's electric.
yeah, for sure. But no, definitely not like the favorite to get fired anymore.
True.
But
They're battling.
they've been a surprise. I mean, I'm a little Kentucky. They're weird. We kind of thought they were going to be scrappy, to kind of be a
Which they
team that
were
wants
early
to.
on. Yeah.
They were early on, and now I feel like they've just kind of they've packed their bags. They're looking at Cancun. They're ready to go on vacation.
Weird stuff. Well, we're going to get into some categories. There were 2 big games on our radar this week. Why don't we just go ahead and break down these 2 games, and then we'll kind of jump into our categories. We've got Georgia at Texas. Matthew McConaughey on the sideline. The drones in the sky in the second half.
That was pretty cool.
I think that the the talking point coming out of this game is really going to end up being, can we just throw stuff on the field and get calls changed? Because that was one of the weirdest.
Yeah.
That was truly one of the strangest things I've ever seen in college football, where so if you're not, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, there was a very bad call against Texas where they called a holding penalty on the defensive back, which negated a huge interception and a return, and it gave Georgia the ball back, essentially. The fans, I mean, honestly, this is nothing against the fans. They did not like that. But then they started throwing things on the field, which my fan base could never do something like this.
Never.
Throw things on the field.
Too much class and integrity.
I will say, whenever Tennessee did this, people got the pitchforks out. Tennessee fans, classless. Tennessee fans, what are they doing? Texas fans do it. They get the call change.
Applauded.
So that's where where the story changes here is the referees, while they're trying to clear up the mess of the students throwing things on the field, they get together and decide, oh, we were wrong. We're going to change the call now. I,
So
they came out with a statement, and the NCAA and SEC was like, referees are allowed to confer with each other. They talked and they disagreed. They agreed to change the call. This is not this can't happen when there's a giant video board showing the replay.
over and over again, because they're not allowed to be influenced by the
Fans
video board.
are throwing things on the field, and then they say, "Oh, we talked and we decided that we were actually wrong at first."
Mm-hmm.
If uh, if the fans hadn't been throwing things, they would have just started the next play, ran the play, and then it would have been done.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how this is a thing. I think the SEC is going to work very hard to make sure it doesn't happen again. But boy, what a bad look for these officials. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's wild.
that's tough, because they talk all the time like it's literally in the refs like rules that they're not like, a coach will tell them all the time. They'll like point at the screen like, look at the replay, and the refs are like, we're not allowed to be like we can't
It's a
do
judgment
that.
call.
It's a judgment call. You can't, in my opinion, you can't reverse a judgment call. It has
Yep.
been called. It is what it
Done.
is. It's just part of
Pass
the game.
interference, holding.
False starts, like
You can't review that for a reason.
You can't
ever.
review it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You missed it.
If it
Sorry.
can't be reviewed, then it can't be reversed like that. So it ended up not mattering.
It didn't matter. If it had mattered, boy,
but it could have mattered.
It definitely could have. I mean, at that point, Texas was down a touchdown or 8 points.
Yeah.
About to get the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, maybe they were down. I think that was before they scored. But yes. Anyways, I mean, at that point, it was a critical piece of the game. Definitely could have made the difference. I just don't get how that can happen. I think that's that's insane. But here we are.
But congrats
once
to
again,
Georgia.
we allow things like this, and we're still allowing fake injuries on the field. I don't.
Yeah.
Someone explain that to me.
We got to get some stuff figured out here. I'm
officials have been all over the place.
I'm for robot refs. I really am. Take out the human element of referees making mistakes, to be honest.
It's very tough, and I feel like you could definitely do that in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been talked about. It probably will happen at some point. The robot umpire who can, because I mean, at that point,
yeah, I don't get it in
football
baseball.
Will be difficult, especially with the calls like we talked about, like pass interference. I mean, it changes it's like refereeing basketball is similarly very difficult.
I know.
Where a whole game flow can change depending on how a ref's calling something.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing in the NFL. There's literally an account that I follow for betting, and it's certain refs call certain things and certain refs don't. And so there's literally a betting account where they track this, and they're like, all right, so this ref and his crew like to call holding penalties at this amount and this clip, and it can influence the over and under of a game by a half a point. And in the NFL, that's
a lot.
That's a lot because the margins are small. And so it really does affect it's a resource I use for gambling on the NFL. So I would like to just get rid of that.
Very interesting.
Some crews are different than others. I would like to just be across the board consistent. But that is the human element of it, and that's I'd probably complain about robot refs too. If I was being honest.
They'd be calling, I mean, that's the thing. It's like calling holds, especially. Like, if they called every hold that existed in football, could you imagine? It would just be every play.
It'd be every play. Yeah. You could call holding on pretty much every play.
That is interesting. I don't know. That was the first I've ever seen something like that. Of course, it happens at Texas.
Couldn't happen to a better team.
And Kirby Smart was not happy about it. After being Texas in the press conference, he let everyone know that he wasn't happy about it. He'll probably be incurring a large fine.
I don't think he cares.
Wild stuff. So to get to the actual game, Georgia was pretty dominant in this one. I mean, there was a time in the second half where it looked like Texas was making a charge.
Mm-hmm.
Arch Manning came in the second quarter at the end of it,
Yeah,
which
Stark said it was just to kind of settle Quentin down and just kind of, I don't know. He's more athletic, and Georgia's pass rush was really just
Mhm.
dominating the day, and so I think that's why Arch got in there for a minute, and then after that, Quentin did settle down. He
It
looked
was better.
better.
Yeah.
It
Nothing
was
that
a little
settles you
too
down
late.
like getting benched. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're trying to inspire competition or whatever, that's something you can do. There have been very few circumstances where a true like dual quarterback situation works effectively at the
Yeah.
highest level, but it's very interesting. It was I was not expecting it, but it was a fun game. Texas just kind of got beat up by Georgia's defense, which was dominant for the most part. 30-15 was your final score there, and Georgia all of a sudden kind of rises back to the top of the conversation of what is the best team in the country, alongside Oregon, who beat a very bad Purdue team 35-0. Uh, this is another situation where our picture of where we're at this season is just getting a little blurrier instead of more clear. Texas, who a
Mhm.
lot of people thought who were dominant, all of a sudden look pretty human against their first real competition they've seen this season. Georgia looks to have a couple of big games under the belt already and looked a little bit more like a team that's seen some real competition. The top of the SEC is a weird place right now. There are a lot of one loss teams running around the SEC. A lot of them, actually. We'll talk about some in a second, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of teams that are be vying for those two SEC championship slots.
My thing with Georgia is up until this point, their defense hadn't looked like the dominant defense that they normally have every year.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Walker, who's a very good player for them, had kind of been like on a pitch count leading
Mm.
up to this game. He was really only brought in for like situational pass rushes because he's coming off of an injury. This was his first game snap count free. Like he just got to play normal, and his impact was instant. You saw
Mm.
number 11 flying around. He had 3 sacks, forced fumble. Just looked like one of those Georgia defensive linemen that you're like, oh yeah, that's why they've won that back-to-back national championships because they can do that.
Yep.
And the offensive line was rolling. Trevor Etienne played well. And kind of took the ball out of Carson Beck's hands as far as like making him have to be the guy who beats you, and that's been Georgia's recipe for success. Um, so to me, this was like, I don't know, since the second half of the Bama game, Georgia
Yep.
has been building back to who they normally are, and that's where I kind of teased it in the Discord, but I'm making a futures parlay, and
Mm.
I think Georgia's about to roll, in my opinion.
Could
I think
be.
we're about to see like 2022 style Georgia.
Hope not for Tennessee's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions in this game.
Yeah. They still won by 15.
That's crazy stat. Uh, 3 interceptions from your quarterback does not usually equal a win against the number one team in the nation on the road. But here we
No.
are. So you mentioned the halftime of the Georgia Bama game, where Georgia has since been playing much better. On the other side of that argument is an Alabama team
Mm-hmm.
who, in the 14 quarters since, has lost 2 games and has looked overall very poor. And so our other big game of the week that involved some top teams was Tennessee hosting Alabama, number 7 Alabama in Neyland Stadium. Obviously, this was a big one for us. I had some friends at the game. They said it was an electric atmosphere. A lot of people that were there. What a star-studded group of people that were at this game. I don't. Um, I just saw online. There were some VFLs that were there in attendance. Alvin Kamara made a post game interview appearance,
Yeah.
jumped in. I saw the likes of Albert Hainsworth, Al Wilson, Dante Stallworth, Jarrett Garantano. Shout out to my guy.
Shout out. Didn't know he was allowed on campus.
Trey Smith was there. Darnell Wright was there. I mean, it was like a who's who of Vols in the NFL all showed up to this game, supporting the recruit section. I
Yeah.
did a little bit of research about this one because I was curious and I was following. So the end of this game, if you're not aware, Tennessee wins this 24-17. There is a delayed field storm. On my section of Twitter, a lot of people were like, let's not storm the field. Let's act like we've been here.
Yeah.
This is not the first time we beat them in 15 years like it was last time. Let's act like we've been here. And after the game, it kind of seemed like that was the case. Everyone was in their seats. And then you see one section of people run onto the field near the end zone. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like a flow. So it turns out that section was the recruits. That the section of recruits who sit right in the end zone, they were the first ones onto the field in the field storm, and then everyone else came after. Weird, a little bit of an interesting story there because it seemed like everyone was pretty content on just staying in their seats, and then the field storms, the goalposts come down. They did not make it out of the stadium this time, like they did at Vanderbilt in 2022. But a pretty fun environment there, pretty electric. Neyland Stadium's been pretty. The last 2 weeks has I would say greatly impacted those two games. If anyone's from anyone that was there at the game at Neyland this week will tell you that I've already listened to a few people that were there talk about it, that the crowd impacted the game pretty significantly. I think Jalen Milroe looked pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
He was out of his element. He couldn't get things figured out. Ryan Williams targeted 18 times.
Gosh.
The next highest target count was like 4 for their second highest wide receiver. I mean, it got to a point where it was like everyone knows where the ball is going. Because they ran it like, how many times did they run the ball? I don't have the stat in front of me. Like less than 10, like true runs. That's the part.
Yeah, from the running back. Yeah, they
did not run it very much.
Lot. No, they were really depending on Milroe to kind of. I truly think part of their offensive plan this week was let Milroe kind of run around in the pocket, and when a lane opened up, let him take it. And UT's defensive line did a great job of staying in their rush lanes and not letting Milroe break out and bust him for those long runs that he's kind of known for. I'm looking now though. I mean,
Milroe had 11 rushing yards. I know.
Jam Miller had 12 rush attempts. Justice Haynes had 8, so 20 attempts between their two starting running backs, and then 14 more from Milroe.
How many total rushing yards?
75.
There you go.
Sacks take away from rush yards though. So if there's any sacks,
decent bit of sacks. Yeah. Defensive. If you look at the PFF grades for this team, which we know are sometimes hit or miss, 7 of Tennessee's top 10 rated players were defensive linemen, which is pretty wild considering you usually only have 5 on the field at a time. That you've got 7 guys who rated in the top 10 on the team. Will Brooks, number 1 in the rank.
I gotta ask. Will Brooks, 8 tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss, and the game sealing pick. What's this kid got to do to get a scholarship?
That's that's a great question. He had a pick 6 against NC State as well. He had a touchdown saving tackle earlier in the game against Milroe, a shoestring tackle where Milroe was 100% in the end zone, if not. And then that's truly, I'm sure he's getting enough NIL money that he's feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a senior, so at this point, what's scholarship going to do for him?
He was, I know this story has been talked about a good bit, but he grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I think his family was an Auburn fans
household,
as far as I know. But he did not get an offer to play at Alabama, came to Tennessee and walked on. he did his time. He's a senior, and he's in the right place at the right time. Not the greatest athlete on the field by any stretch, but man, he's been an asset for the team this year.
And he's been here for
He's
both
come up in
times to
some
beat
big.
Bama.
That's true. He's a Bama killer. This guy is he's a fun story. The team really likes him. He's an awesome guy. Shout out to Will Brooks stealing the game. Fun game. Offense, obviously. Okay, let's start here. The first half was not fun game. The first half was pretty much torture for both teams, I think.
So.
Alabama goes in the locker room as a 7-0, up 7-0, but after they had squandered a couple of offensive opportunities, got intercepted at the 5 from the 5-yard line, to negate a touchdown there. They missed a lot of opportunities. Tennessee missed 2 long field goals on some similarly very good opportunities. Pretty just absolutely just gross first half of football. Second half, things settled down. Nico, who looked pretty pedestrian for most of the game, hit a couple of. At this point in Nico's career, he is either absolutely dead on or he is overthrowing. I mean, it just seems like he's so close to getting everything clicked in, and when it does, like the throw to Dante Thornton down the sideline was just absolutely perfect. The throw to Brazzle in the end zone was also perfect, but then he overthrew a couple people pretty bad in the first half. So he's still a work in progress for sure, but I think he's close.
Yeah.
I think he will get there. I'm glad that he had a couple good throws, or else the Vol Nation was pretty close to rioting, I think, at some point. Offense was disgusting in the first half. It was truly just horrendous to watch. But here we are. We beat Florida, Bama consecutive weeks, and Tennessee is firmly in the playoff conversation at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely needed it with Georgia coming up, and it's just it felt like it was a game we belonged in. We just were making some tough decisions, bad decisions at times, but at the end of the day, freshman quarterback. I know he's a red shirt and all that, and you can say whatever you want. We're going to have to go. It's his 8th game. We're going through some growing pains.
Definitely.
And to be at the spot that we're in now, even though we do have a freshman quarterback, hey, we're ahead of schedule here, program wise. We're fine. And the SEC is just wild. I just truly think I've said it. 6 teams. I think that was a little too bold of a prediction a couple weeks ago when I said that, but I don't see how we don't get 5. 5.
We're gonna do some playoff talk in a second. I don't know. I'm nervous. I think 4 could be more realistic at this point.
Yeah, 4 solidly, but I think a 5th sneaks in there. But yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, we'll do some playoff talking in a second. But I mean, there's a lot of good games in college. I know last week was the week that everyone kind of hyped up for a long time, like clear your schedule October 12th. Like this is going to be the best weekend of college football, and it was good, great games. This weekend might have been better, top to bottom. I was on vacation last week, so it got to be a little bit more locked in than normal. But Friday night games were all it was a fun slate with BYU. But... No, I didn't even watch the second of the Oregon game. But that BYU Oklahoma State game was fun. Late night, I was up late Saturday night. I was watching UNLV versus Oregon State. That was a good game. Mostly just because I took UNLV live -5.5 and had to fight for it for a little while. But I mean, it's a good weekend of football. I mean, there's from the 11 all day Saturday was good. Like sometimes there's like that little stretch where I might take a little cat nap here. Or, I can do a quick little house chore errand. Like, oh yeah, don't worry, babe, I'll fold that little bit of laundry right there. I'm just doing it because the good slate's about to kick off. Like I gotta help out for a second. Did something. Yeah. But this Saturday I was like, sorry, I'm locked in. It's not ending. There's not a second to breathe right now.
Throw the kids outside. They'll be fine.
They'll figure it out.
Okay. we're gonna get into categories in a second. We do have some NFL to talk about as well. Mason's not here, so Mason is not with us today.
R.I.P. Mason.
Actually, he's
For the
right
day.
here. Here's some NFL talk from Mason. Just kidding. Mason couldn't be here today. That's okay. So, in honor of that, we are going to hit a little bit of college football heavy probably today. Before we get to our categories, I'm starting a new segment. We're not gonna sit on it for a long time. Because I know that the playoffs right now, it's mid season. A lot of people are not wanting to think about playoffs too much yet, but it's time. We do a little bit. I'm gonna call this segment playoff potential. These are teams that are potential playoff teams that still have it in their schedule and what I believe in themselves to make a playoff spot. So we're going to go conference by conference, and we're going to see. I'm going to give a prediction of how many slots I think are available and how many teams are still fighting for those amount of slots. Let's just start with the SEC because I think it's the easiest one to talk about because because all the teams have a loss now. Every SEC team has at least one loss. Only 2 teams have no SEC losses. That would be LSU and Texas A&M. A fun fact: they play next week, so there will be only one after that. One of those teams will be undefeated in SEC, and one will be with everyone else. So let's do a quick playoff potential for the SEC. Here are the teams in my playoff potentials. We have Texas, 1 loss. Georgia, 1 loss. Tennessee, 1 loss.
Mm-hmm.
A&M, 1 loss. LSU, 1 loss. Missouri, 1 loss. By my count, that is 6 SEC teams fighting for, in my opinion, about 4 playoff spots.
Yeah.
It's about to get crazy there. There's a potential for some wild stuff to be happening. So that's SEC. Let's go to Big Ten really fast because I think there's also some interesting stuff happening there. Playoff potential.
Some confusing stuff for me.
In the Big Ten. Oregon, undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, 1 loss against Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely there. We've got Indiana, undefeated.
6-0.
Wild stuff there. And then you have Penn State also undefeated. So
that's the tough one for me.
From my perspective, there are 4 teams fighting for a max of 4 spots. I mean, is there even another team in the conversation in the Big Ten?
No.
Illinois? Illinois is 1 loss.
Oh.
If there was another team, it would be Illinois, who just pulled off a big win against Michigan.
Yeah, that's not a big win. Michigan sucks. I know you've been fighting for Michigan, but
Illinois.
So Illinois lost to Penn State,
right? And it was a 14-point game. No, it was 14-point game.
Yeah, they covered.
They've got at Oregon this week, so they're going to prove it. If they lose, they're probably out. But
yeah. I was gonna say, I think Illinois got a pretty tough schedule.
I guess Wisconsin is maybe the other frisky team. They're 2 losses, but they're not bad losses. And so
I don't know.
They lost to USC and Bama.
If Illinois loses, or if Illinois beats Oregon, the rest of their schedule is actually cake.
I mean, I think Illinois, a two-loss Illinois team whose only losses are Penn State and Oregon are going to have an interesting conversation
kind of
there.
Bid to try to get in.
Yep. Okay, so there's my teams there. 5 teams may be fighting for about 4 spots from where I'm standing. Some of those teams play each other still.
Yeah, Penn State still has to play Ohio State.
Yep.
And I don't know
Indiana
if they play.
plays Ohio State as well.
Yeah.
So
and Ohio State's not going to lose all those games.
You would not expect so. Okay, moving to the Big 12. This is the weirdest. The absolute weirdest group of teams you could ever see here. BYU undefeated. We have an Iowa State team who just barely pulled out a win they probably shouldn't have against UCF. undefeated. A
They for
Kansas
sure
State
shouldn't have.
team that has looked pretty frisky at times with one loss. In my opinion, you've got 3 teams there fighting for
1.5 spots.
Yeah, they're. I
think
think
it
there's a
depends
reality
on
where
who.
BYU and Iowa State both go undefeated and play each other for the championship, and the committee's gonna have to make a decision of whether they're going to let an undefeated regular season team in or put like a 2-loss SEC team in or Big Ten team.
Yeah,
So tune in for
that's
that
where
one
it
because
gets
that's going to
weird.
be wild stuff right there. Okay, moving on. ACC. This is the most clear cut of the conferences. Well, let's maybe not. ACC has Miami undefeated,
Mm-hmm.
frauds, but undefeated. They had another one score win this week against Louisville. You've got a Clemson team who has been rolling since a bad loss against Georgia in the first game of the season. And you have Tins, you know who's number 3 in the ACC? Do you know?
Pitt.
Pittsburgh, undefeated, who is completely on no one's radar,
I
but
got
their
another one
schedule
for
has
you
been
too.
very bad. So Pittsburgh will be playing some actual competition coming up soon, and we will see if they're for real or not. Not
You also
convinced on
have
that one.
SMU, who's 6-1, undefeated
There you
in
go.
the ACC, whose schedule finishes like this: Duke, Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, Cal.
Sheesh. There you go.
Zach, they could go. They could go undefeated in the ACC,
SMU,
and
Miami.
SMU, Miami could be a real
Well,
thing.
Clemson's also undefeated in the ACC. Who wins the tiebreaker?
I don't know. That
I don't know either. That's wild stuff.
we yeah, that's
Somebody look into that.
somebody find us a tiebreaker because they don't play like Clemson doesn't play them. They both
Clemson.
play. They both play Pitt.
Okay, so there will be at least some answers there. So
Gosh,
there, from our
the ACC
estimation, then
is
you got 4
crazy.
teams fighting for.
They're one and a
Unfortunately,
half spots to
I
me
think
too.
ACC is going to send 2 teams.
Think so?
I think it's going to be Miami and Clemson. If I had to guess, I think they're the best 2 teams. But that's where we're at. So let's go elsewhere out of the Big 4. We obviously have a G5 team making it. Let's do a quick Army Navy talk here, because boy, so Army Navy's been in the news. They're ranked 23 and 25. They both had blowout wins. Let's do a quick schedule lookup because I was curious as to this Army Navy schedules. Are you ready, Tins?
I'm ready.
This is Army schedule so far: Lehigh, FAU, Rice, Temple, Tulsa, UAB, East Carolina. That's their
Yikes!
7 wins. Coming up, Air Force, North Texas, Notre Dame, UTSA, and then Navy. Let's do a similar thing just really fast, just for reference sake for Navy. Navy's schedule thus far this season, because now everyone's talking about Army Navy. Bucknell, Temple, Memphis, UAB, Air Force, Charlotte. They play Notre Dame this next week. Rice, South Florida, Tulane, East Carolina, Army.
Yeah, Memphis
Guys,
is a good
I
one.
just don't know what we're doing with this. I know they're both undefeated. I get that it's an interesting conversation to have. I think the reality is they're both going to lose to Notre Dame. Because I just don't. I think their style of football is fine when you're playing teams like Bucknell. I don't think it's fine when you're playing real football teams.
Real
No
athletes.
offense to the service academies, but here's where we are. Okay, I should have got that off my chest. I'm sorry. So let's talk about G5 representation. I think unless something crazy happens, it will likely be Boise State. They have a 3-point loss to Oregon. Other than that, they've played very well. There is an outside chance that an Army Navy goes undefeated, beats Notre Dame, and then wins that game and wins their game against each other. I think that would be pretty shocking to me. I
Oh,
think it's
look out.
Boise
I mean,
State's to lose. That's
Boise
me.
State playing UNLV this Friday night.
That's a big one
That's
because
a big
UNLV
game.
has been pretty frisky as well. Yeah,
Yeah, they're 6-1.
their loss was not as good as Boise State's loss, I don't think. But
I don't think so. I think they lost like in conference in the Mountain West because that's where they're at.
the other non-Power 4 team that is on the radar of everyone
Syracuse. Yeah.
would be Notre Dame. Notre Dame had a bad loss to NIU. Other than that, their schedule is pretty soft. I mean, they have to play Army and Navy, but they'll be heavy favorites in both those matchups. Like we said earlier, they're 13.5-point favorites this week. And so I think there's a very, very high probability that Notre Dame will make the playoffs,
They
unfortunately for everyone.
they lost to an NIU team that has since lost to Buffalo, Toledo, and NC State. So that is an abomination. How are you going to lose to not even the MAC school that's going to win the MAC? But here we are, Notre
That's a
Dame
great
doing Notre
question.
Dame things.
Notre Dame doing Notre Dame things, which includes not joining a conference even after everyone else is combining conferences. The Steelers are like, I think we're going to sit this one out.
At this point, I hope
Shout out
they
to them, I
join
guess.
like the Pac-12. They join like the worst Power 5 conference, you know?
I think it's practically the schedule they're playing, though. I mean,
They play a lot of those Mountain West schools. Just go join them.
I
That's what the
think at
Pac-12
this
is going to
point,
be.
here's my take. We should give them a bowl ban until they join a conference. It's not like there's conferences that aren't out there that are like would gladly accept Notre Dame. You don't think the ACC would welcome Notre Dame with open arms at this point?
They'd kick Cal out in a second to
I
get
think
Notre
they'd
Dame
kick
in.
most of the teams out. It's at this point, it's just because they want to be able to schedule whoever they want to schedule and not have to deal with playing tough teams on a regular basis. This has never been a secret. It's just what's happening. And now in this playoff era, it's just becoming
It's
more and
more
more
like
just annoying for everyone
important.
else. It's just the
Yeah.
most frustrating thing. So shout out to Notre Dame for their playoff ban until they become, I mean, even whatever, join any conference. I don't care. Okay. Moving on. That is your playoff potential for the week. I think each week we're going to narrow this down a little bit. So pretty interesting stuff. By the way, I didn't include Alabama. Maybe I should have included Alabama in the SEC. I still think Alabama has a chance. Two-loss Alabama team that wins out definitely could still make the playoffs. They have shown they've got enough juice where they can do that kind of stuff. So I would not be shocked. The Vandy loss will sit terrible on their resume.
Yeah.
But they do have a win against Georgia, who has looked not bad since then. So that is to their credit. But the Vandy loss will look very bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I think 2 losses puts them. I think they're in the same boat as Ole Miss. Like, it's just it's an uphill battle, and I
Yep,
think
Ole
there's
Miss
too
has 2
many
losses
other
as well.
teams that are going to fall in the they deserve a spot category. But I mean, if I guess I agree. If Bama wins out, I don't see how they don't get in.
It's going to get messy. There's going to be a
there's going to
lot of
be some
2-loss teams around the
deserving
country,
teams.
and someone's not
Yeah.
making it.
Yeah.
There's going to be more than 12 1 or 2-loss teams around the country. And there's going to be a serious conversation of who makes it and who doesn't.
And somebody deserving will get left out, and there will be
Definitely
anger in the streets.
It's probably going to be a 1-loss Big 12 team, if I had to guess, or an undefeated Big 12 team.
I think that, and I think it'll be a 1-loss Big 10. And the ACC, to me, I really think it's the winner. It's the only one that gets in.
ACC?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They're not going to leave Clemson out, I don't think.
I don't.
If Miami just runs the table, I don't think.
There's a world Clemson doesn't get in the SEC championship game.
It's true. SMU
and Pitt both present that problem where they get in over Clemson.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. I mean, there's so
A
much
little
football
bit.
to be played, but
So much
it is
football.
an interesting conversation to have because it's going to become this 12 team is going to get wild.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be
I think it's
hectic
an
to end of the
even
year.
crazier conversation than the 4 team because there's so
Yeah.
much more potential for teams getting left out who are
Yeah. And
probably deserving.
if there's teams we've missed that you guys want to talk about, hop on the Discord. That's what we've got, channels just to come talk about college football. We love talking about this stuff with you guys.
Yeah, yell at
We
us.
blow up. We've got group texts that literally just do this all day where we're just brainstorming about football. So definitely hop in the Discord and talk to us about what is going on and what you think's going on in the college football playoff, because it's only going to get more hectic from here until December.
Definitely. I'll let a Notre Dame fan on this pod to yell at me. Let's have the conversation. If you're a Notre Dame fan and thinks that Notre Dame not having a conference is good for college football, then come on the pod and we'll debate you. Open invitation.
Yes, I agree. Any Notre Dame fan who's brave enough to hop on
The
here
president
and
of Notre
face
Dame,
us.
if you want to come on this podcast and you think you can argue as to why it's a good idea for you to remain conferenceless, I'll have that conversation. Okay. Whew. That went pretty long. Huh.
Nah.
Okay. Do we want to do some categories quickly?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can
Let's
run
knock
through them.
them
We've
out.
already talked about a lot
Yeah.
of the games that happened over the
Mm-hmm.
weekend, but okay, let's do it. Time for your categories. Let's do this first one. Upset of the week. Who you got?
I just had Georgia over Texas.
Yeah,
Texas
not
was
a
a
lot of
5-point
upsets.
favorite at home. Number one team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I mean, I personally thought Georgia was going to win, but I was in the minority across the world for that. But I'm glad I thought that and bet that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was mine. That, like you said, there weren't a ton of like true world shattering upsets, but there were still a few, and this was one of them. Number 5 beating number 1, especially the way they did it too. Like it wasn't
Sure.
particularly close.
Agree. Yeah, I think we can almost call this one a surprise of the week, but I think the score that whenever I saw it, I didn't necessarily watch a lot of this game, but this whenever I saw it surprised me the most was Florida over Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
48-20. Again, maybe not a huge upset, but that's a surprising 48 points for that Florida team, who was
Yeah,
just dead in the water early in the season. I mean, what a turnaround!
it's Lagway.
Lagway played well. Kentucky, you can argue Kentucky's just giving up, but that Florida team is. I'm glad we played them last week and not like next week because I think that could have been an interesting game.
Yeah, I think they have a little belief in
Yeah,
themselves now.
which I did not expect.
Yeah, I know. Before the season started, we expected at this point Billy had been fired, and
Right.
they kind of would have been packing it up. But we touched on it earlier. It's obviously not how the season has gone for Florida. They have performed above our expectation.
Definitely. Okay. Disappointment of the week.
All right. I went to the Big 12 with this one. Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a team that's kind of been they've been handling what they need to handle this year. They were 6-1 going into this game. Home field advantage. You're a 7-point favorite against a Baylor team that's just kind of meh. And not only do you lose, but you get beat up pretty bad. 2-score game at home. You had, in my opinion, they had the Big 12 kind of their path in their own hands, and they fumbled it.
Mm,
So that was my disappointment of the week. I expected them to handle business and kind of keep trucking towards a Big 12 championship appearance, and they ruined it.
bummer. All right, disappointment of the week. I'm looking towards this Nebraska Indiana game. This was circled on a lot of people's, especially ours, as being a really interesting Big Ten game. And Indiana made it not interesting pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska, fake my guy,
Patrick Mahomes.
fake Patrick Mahomes just fell over. I mean, he showed that he's a freshman. Indiana proved that they are a team to be reckoned with in the Big Ten. But as far as disappointment goes, I was just hoping this would be a more fun game. It was not fun. It was pretty much over in the first half. Indiana just ran away with this one. Kind of beat Illinois. They beat Nebraska up. Rayola never could get going. It was just a pretty gross game for Nebraska team that has looked pretty good this season. Indiana just shut them down. So look out, world. This was kind of Indiana's coming out party.
Yeah.
We could have a Big Ten contender on our hands there.
Yeah, I think they make the Big Ten a little bit frisky, like as far as
Definitely.
that third and fourth team getting in. They're a
Which I
team
think
you
is
don't
what
want
the
to
Big
play
Ten
in the
is needed.
playoffs. Mm-hmm.
The
They've
Big
been
Ten
so
for the
top
last
heavy
4, 5, maybe even the last 7 or 8 years has been so top heavy with Ohio State,
in
Michigan.
Michigan.
Iowa's been good on defense and bad everywhere else.
Yeah.
And then
Penn State
Penn
trips and
State
falls every
usually
year.
loses 2 or 3 bad games this season. And then other than that, it's like, what are we doing? I think a
Yeah.
team like Indiana being pretty good and then adding in Oregon makes the Big Ten a much more interesting product. So
Yeah,
pretty
for
fun
sure.
stuff.
For
Okay.
sure. Definitely adds another element to it.
Overreaction of the week.
All right. My overreaction of the week is 2 parts.
Okay.
Brian Thomas Jr. is well on his
Mm.
way of being a top 10 wide receiver in the National Football League.
Wow.
He is the next great LSU wide receiver, which, in my opinion, LSU is wide receiver U. If you just look across the league, the top receivers all come from LSU. He is performing better than the top 3 wide receivers taken ahead of him. Oh, by the way, the Jaguars drafted him at the 23rd overall pick. He is tied for first in receiving touchdowns this year, ninth in receiving yards, and is top 25 in catches. He has played 7 games in the NFL and is already getting tailed by top 10 cornerback Christian Gonzalez. Followed him all day today in coverage, which is a big sign of respect in the NFL when a corner travels with you. When we played the Dolphins, Jalen Ramsey did the same thing. So Brian Thomas Jr., I'm going to buy your jersey if it keeps going this way because he is shaping up to be a very, very good player. And I can't wait to see what Ben Johnson does with him next year. Because Doug, you're still getting fired, buddy.
Wow. Even after the dub today, huh?
Yeah, our schedule goes Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions. We're about to get demolished for
Pretty good
4
teams.
straight games. And then he'll get fired at the bye week. It's an official prediction. But
Okay.
hey, we won today. Great.
Love it. All right. Overreaction of the week. The Alabama dynasty is dead.
Kalen DeBoer ruined it all in 7 games.
I want to take a quick victory lap here because in the offseason when every other talking head in the country was saying this Alabama team is top 5 team, going to the playoffs, they're not going to miss a step. Their roster is too good. DeBoer is an elite coach with an offensive mind. He's going to unlock Milroe, blah, blah, blah. Here we are. Here we sit. Bama 0-2 against the state of Tennessee so far this season.
That's right, baby.
This team, as predicted by me, by the way, is likely going to miss the playoffs. I think there's a chance they go 8-4. I just think this is not a complete team right now. There were some things that happened in the game that just it's hard coming in for a guy like Nick Saban and trying to reproduce things that he's been doing for so long. At the end of the day, the roster is important, but that doesn't replicate all the other things that Nick Saban did with that program that made it so successful. Jalen Milroe proved to be probably not a Heisman contender.
Probably.
He
Good thing I didn't get that bet in.
struggled hard against. I hope everyone cashed out their Jalen Milroe tickets after the Georgia game was over because I think that ticket is not good anymore. I just think, it's an overreaction that Bama Dynasty is dead. A lot of Bama fans are saying that right now, which is pretty funny. I like the From coming from a Tennessee fan, you can appreciate it because Tennessee fans have been doing this for a very long time, the past 20ish years of saying we're cooked and we will never be good again. And it will not be forever. DeBoer still might be the guy for the job, but that's, coaching in the SEC is hard. Winning in the SEC is hard. It's say whatever you want, but SEC is not the same as the Pac-12 under any circumstances. It's a different type of league, different ball game. Um, that is what it is. You can fight me if you want. Come on the episode, we'll talk. That's my overreaction of the week. Okay, moving on. Performance of the week. Performance of the week.
Performance of the week. All right. I went with the ref crew in the Iowa State game. Uh, Iowa State versus UCF. This was a game that Iowa State was at home, favored by 10 points, and they found themselves in a battle. Uh, Minute left in the game. I actually switched it from the UT game to watch the last minute of this. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're about to knee out the ball." Or it was the Georgia Texas game. I said, "That game's fine. I need to see how this game ends." And I'm glad I did. Iowa State marches down the field. By March, I mean, they got a really bad pass interference call to get them on the 1 yard line, and then proceed to do two QB sneaks in a row from shotgun, which on the second one, on 4th and goal on the 1 yard line, an obvious and blatant false start by the left tackle and left guard. Those guys were literally blocking the defensive line before the ball was snapped. Wasn't called. Touchdown, Iowa State. They win. My wife was like, "Can they not challenge that?" I said, "No, that's ball." I said, "That's Dallas." She didn't get the reference, so I moved on. But yeah, no, it was. I was like, "Yeah, it's just that happens. It's judgment." The ref didn't catch it. They win the game. That's how it goes. So shout out to that crew because that should have been a flag, and it would have been probably end of game because you would have had a 10-second runoff. Wow. It would have made it like 5 seconds left. Like it was, yeah. But Iowa State saves their undefeated season.
There you go.
With a little help from their friends.
Probably the same crew that keeps covering those Miami games. Bailing them out. My performance of the week. Bad. I'm just going to keep this one short and sweet, but I'm going to pick Illinois. A huge win over Michigan. The whole team. Mm-hmm. We're picking the whole team here. Big win at home against a Michigan team that we know has been pretty up and down this season. Michigan is dead. They're out.
Very dead.
Officially declared out of playoff contention, Michigan. Illinois, officially in playoff contention still. So a big win by Illinois. They're keeping the Big Ten interesting over there. Illinois, Indiana. Okay. Do you want to do highest riser here?
Yeah. Highest riser to me is Oregon. Obviously, they're now all the way up to number 1 in the AP poll. And, this is a team that started out slow in the season, dropped to like 10. People are like, "Oh, this Oregon team is very overrated. Mm-hmm. They're definitely not going to get through the Big Ten." And here they sit. Ever since that Boise State game where it was kind of back and forth with them, I've said it a few times. They've kind of figured out who they are and what they want to do, and they're just keep getting better and better at doing it. And this Oregon team, I think, is very dangerous.
I agree.
I think they've got a little bit of an easy path here. They could find themselves, in a Big Ten championship game against a team that they've already beat, or a Penn State team that I don't fully believe in, or someone like an Indiana. Or Illinois, for that matter. And I think they just are more athletic and have better players than those two teams. So this Oregon team could find themselves to have a very easy path to the college football playoffs. And then from there, anything is possible.
Yeah, I agree. I think my highest riser is actually going to be an SEC team. We're going to pick LSU here. LSU beat an Arkansas team on the road that Tennessee couldn't beat, by the way. After a bad loss, the loss that looks worse in retrospect against USC to start the season, are 6-1, top of the SEC, and they're all of a sudden looking like a team that controls their own destiny and could end up in the SEC championship game. They've got a big game against A&M. They've got a couple of big games still coming up, but they're a team that's looking more and more like a playoff contender. I think a lot of people were writing them off earlier in the season. Okay, our biggest fall. Team took the biggest downturn.
Yeah, I went with the Falcons here. Favorites at home. They've been rolling a little bit, and this is your first team that you're playing outside of the NFC South in a minute, and you get embarrassed at home. This isn't a Seahawks team that I think is great. They've kind of lost. They've dropped some games that are very winnable. So I thought more of this Falcons team. Kirk Cousins just kind of looked off from the start. And I just think this team can only go as far as Kirk Cousins can go. And when you are a 38-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear, I just don't know how far you can take a team all by yourself. Like, their defense is just okay, but no one else is really doing anything, stepping up in a big way to help this team win. I mean, you shouldn't have lost. They lost by more than 10 points at home against the Seahawks. That's just not something that happens to good teams in the NFL. Like, NFL games are mostly one possessions, especially at home.
True. Okay. I think for my biggest loser of the week, we just mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. I think it's Michigan here. Picked up their third loss of the season. Really did not look good. Their offense is just kind of historically bad. They only put up 7 points against an Illinois team. Illinois on a 15-year drought against beating Michigan now. Beat them. I think Michigan is Sharon Moore kind of low-key on the hot seat. A pretty low buyout. I think there's people questioning whether that was the right decision to hire someone internally versus to go find another big name. Team looks not great.
Yeah.
Especially offensively. Looks very poor. So I think that is definitely going to be a conversation. Speaking
I
of,
agree.
I
feel like they just they put a Band-Aid on this season, knowing probably some suspensions and some stuff's going to come down from the Connor Stallion stuff. So they're like, well, we'll just kind of slap it on this guy and then go get our big name after this.
feel like a placeholder.
Yeah.
There's a couple of others, speaking of, before we do our next clip of the week, there's a couple of other hot seats around the country. We're just going to quickly mention some of them. Hot seat of the week. I have one. Brent Venables. Tins called this one.
In the summer.
Yeah, he called a long time ago. Brent Venables, firmly on the hot seat. His offensive coordinator just got fired today. That's breaking news, maybe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think right before we started recording.
You start firing coordinators, and it's bad.
Offensive coordinator for Oklahoma. I just lost his name. I could have told you. He is out for an offense that has looked pretty much as bad as you could possibly imagine. Jackson Arnold, obviously not very good. They have a freshman in recently. Pretty much bad all around. And he's on the hot seat. Next up on the hot seat. That's Seth Luttrell, who's out, by the way. Seth Luttrell out as the offensive coordinator. Tight ends coach will take over. That's probably not good.
Sure, it's going to
other
go
teams
well.
on the hot seat or coaches, we've got Lincoln Riley, USC. A USC team that people after that LSU game at the very beginning were like, oh, this USC team can play some defense. Turns out they're pretty mediocre. There's another team that came from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten and is struggling. They've had a pretty tough schedule, to give them some credit. But Lincoln Riley, all of a sudden with that Caleb Williams, their team is just looking worse and worse overall.
Yeah, he needs to just go be an offensive coordinator in the NFL for one of his. I mean, he's got a bunch of dudes. Um, like the Bucks probably have an offensive coordinator job open up after this year because their current
Mm,
guy's gonna get a head coaching job. He's done very well with the Bucks. And he's from the McVay tree. He's on
mm,
my list. Um, don't worry about the list. Only I have the list.
long
But
list.
Lincoln Riley, get fired. Go hook back up with Baker Mayfield as the OC. Just do that. He's just not. He's one of these guys that's just not.
Yeah,
He's not a head coach.
just has never clicked. Hasn't clicked yet.
No,
Um,
at two big time programs where it should have clicked by now. At least to have more success than he's had.
agree. And Mark Stoops, kind of low key on the hot seat at Kentucky. I think Kentucky, there something is off there. There is some. I just think that the two parties are no longer seeing eye to eye. I think Mark Stoops really
Mm-hmm.
wanted out last year. He tried to go to A
And
and
it
M, which I
got
think A
pulled
and M
out from him.
probably made a good choice there.
Yeah.
And when it was all said and done, I feel like they're on
Yeah.
a better. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think either one of them are really like Elko's whatever, but Stoops is probably just whatever as well.
I just
I
think
don't think
Stoops could retire and be done. That's probably what he should do.
probably. It's probably yeah.
Yeah,
Go get him one of these TV analyst
that's what everyone
jobs.
else is doing.
Yeah.
We just
Go get
keep
on a panel of
creating TV
17
analyst jobs for coaches.
for some reason.
I don't understand. Whatever. Okay. Next guy up of the week. Next guy up of the week. I have one nominee.
All right.
It's going to be the Texas student section. Never before has a student section changed a call on the field in real
Mm-hmm.
time. Great work.
Mm-hmm.
Much classier than when Tennessee did it, I will say. No mustard bottles on the field. I don't know. That's my next app of the week. You single-handedly changed an outcome of a play with your actions.
By yourself. That is a good one. You're going to end up getting my vote. I'll go ahead and throw out my nomination because that's a good one. Marcus Mariota. If you watch the QB series on Netflix, you know that this guy was ran out of the Falcons organization, kind of retired. Like he kind of quit on his team and was like, "I'm done with you guys," and went and hid for like half a season at home, and then like was magically on the Eagles last year as a backup. It's a very weird situation because the Falcons like never actually cut him. So I don't know. Weird thing. But he's found himself as a journeyman backup quarterback now. He is on the Washington Commanders team. Jaden Daniels looks like he's okay, but they kind of held him out for the game. He got hurt very early. Marcus Mariota comes in, throws for 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, going 18 for 23. Pretty
Pretty
good
good.
day. Shout out the flying Hawaiian, the flying pineapple. Marcus Mariota was fun to watch back in the day.
He was.
Kind of rocky end of his career here the last few years, but it was fun seeing him out there in the Jaden Daniels kind of style offense. Even the commentators were like, if you looked at a scouting report coming into the NFL draft when Marcus Mariota was coming out, you'd probably see a lot of the same things that you see about Jaden Daniels. So I don't know. Marcus Mariota was always just one of those guys. Even though he played for the Titans, I liked watching him. He was very exciting. So it was fun watching him today. Put up a 40 burger on the Panthers. Shout out to Panthers. You guys are terrible. You guys suck. The Andy Dalton experiment is over. Like at this point, Andy's got to be like, dude, put me back on the bench. I didn't sign up for this. I'm not trying to get beat up like this every game. I mean, poor Andy Dalton threw for 93 yards today, 2 picks. Like he was just trying to just hold a clipboard and coach up a young quarterback. He wasn't trying to be out here like this. So yeah, shout out the Panthers. You guys are a dumpster fire and a half. But I definitely agree. I think the Texas student section should win the next guy up award because they truly
Great work, everybody.
They put in some overtime this week. I did not know that was possible. I've literally never seen that happen.
Yeah, I don't think that should have happened. Here we are.
I don't think it should have happened either, but hey, they get an award. So if the Texas University, if you could I'll reach out to you and
Who should
see
we
where you
send
want
this
this.
to?
Yeah, y'all got like a captain of the student section, so I can send this to somebody.
Yeah.
No,
Should make
Siri,
it
I'm not
out
talking
to
to you.
Texas, the whole state.
One sidebar about Texas: I didn't see enough horns down out of Georgia players and fans
Yeah.
at the game.
No.
I need more horns down when people are beating Texas. This is not the big. It's not the Big 12. We're not protecting Texas. Like
That's
horns
true.
down them.
No, yeah. Just do it all, as much as possible.
That's one of my like when you have a celebration like the horns up or the gator chomp or the U for like Miami. Like it's one of the best things when
Yeah.
the opposing team mocks it in your face.
Got to do it back. We'll see.
Got to.
Texas got a tough matchup this week to a fan base that will definitely do horns down.
Who are they playing?
Vanderbilt. They're at Vandy.
Oh, they will.
Listen,
get
this
ready.
is a Vandy
Better
team
watch
is
out.
frisky. You don't want to play at Vandy these days. It's a death trap.
Vandy didn't cover this week. Some could say it was a look-ahead game. They were kind of just trying to
playing it all week for Texas.
They're watch out, Texas. Half that stadium is going to be rocking. The other half is under construction. But that's beside the point.
And then the other half is also bought by Texas fans who wanted to see them.
True.
So for the 25% of Vandy fans that are there, horns down everywhere.
Horns down all across the stadium.
Okay. That a pod?
All right. I believe that is a pod.
It's a pod. We'll be back with you on Thursday for a preview of this next week's games. We got some big ones coming at you. LSU A&M. Some big
top of the SEC
or games.
Yep. SEC can't
for
talk.
The first team in the SEC, first place. We will be back with you. Be with us on the Discord. We are on TikTok. We are on Twitter. We're everywhere. Come join us. Be with us. If you have a problem with any of our takes today, come talk to us. We'll have you on the podcast to discuss it. We're not afraid of anything here. So we hope you guys have a great week. We will see you back here on Thursday.